It began with whispers, faint talk of change, of light, of possibility. But in a village buried deep in the rural shadows, where darkness fell heavy and electricity was a distant dream, those whispers were easy to ignore. They said it wasn't real. They said it was fake. Just another empty promise. Another experiment by outsiders who would come, pose for pictures, and vanish with the wind. The villagers had seen it all before. Talk of technology. Projects that started but never finished. Lights that flickered on for a day and died forever. So when a small group of engineers arrived with solar panels, wires, and strange-looking equipment, skepticism hung in the air like smoke. Children gathered to watch, wide-eyed. Elders stood at a distance, arms folded. The sun beat down on the dry earth, and the team worked silently under it, digging, wiring, testing, facing doubt, heat, and occasional laughter from onlookers who had given up hoping for real change. The village had lived without electricity for generations. Candles lit the homes. Fires cooked the food. Phones stayed dead unless someone walked miles to the nearest town to find a charging point. School children struggled to study at night. The sick couldn't refrigerate medicine. Women carried water long distances without a way to pump it. Every need was tied to daylight. And when the sun dipped behind the mountains, life paused. The stars took over. And darkness reigned. But the team didn't stop. Slowly, panel by panel, rooftop by rooftop, the work progressed. They installed small batteries inside homes, systems capable of storing energy harvested from the day. They built a microgrid, an autonomous network that didn't depend on the nation's power infrastructure. A system resilient, decentralized, and intelligent. Still, the villagers remained unconvinced. "Just wait," one elder said. "Like always, they'll pack up and leave when it breaks." Then came the evening that would change everything. The sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky orange, then indigo. Families gathered outside, as they always did, to let the night settle in. Children sat beside their mothers. Farmers leaned on worn-out tools. It was supposed to be like every other night. But then, something happened. A small flicker. Then another. One by one, homes began to glow. Dim lights. Soft at first. Then stronger. White and golden light pouring from within walls that had never seen artificial light before. Laughter erupted. Screams of surprise. Children ran from house to house in disbelief. Some cried. Some danced. Some simply stared. The elder who doubted the most stood silent, his face glowing not from the light, but from something deeper. A mix of awe and regret. In one small house, a child opened a textbook and read past sunset, for the first time. In another, a young mother placed her baby under a fan, watching it sleep peacefully in the cooled air. A small clinic powered on its refrigerator to store vaccines that used to spoil in the heat. A water pump began to hum, relieving women from the exhausting daily walks. Word spread fast. Neighboring villages heard the news. People traveled just to see it with their own eyes. "Is it true?" they asked. "Does it really work?" The answer was yes. It wasn't fake. It wasn't a gimmick. It was sustainable. Clean. Real. The technology wasn't new, it had existed for years. But this time, someone brought it with the right intention. Not for show, but for impact. They trained locals to maintain the system. Taught children how solar works. Left behind tools, manuals, and knowledge. They didn't build dependence, they planted empowerment. And now the night in that village looks different. It isn't pitch black anymore. From above, satellites can now spot a new dot of light in a place that once didn't exist on the map of electricity. A pinprick of brightness in a sea of darkness. A beacon of what's possible when innovation meets belief, and when outsiders don't just promise, they deliver. The elder who once doubted now tells the story to anyone who'll listen. About the night his village lit up. The night they were proven wrong. The night they realized the future had arrived, not in a city, not in a capital, but right here, where it was needed most. They doubted it all, until the village was bathed in light. In the days that followed, the village transformed. Shadows that once dictated daily routines now had competition. Evening gatherings grew larger, not out of necessity, but out of joy. People stayed up later, talking, laughing, sharing stories under new electric bulbs that shone like quiet miracles. Businesses began to emerge. A tailor plugged in a sewing machine for the first time. A young man set up a phone charging kiosk using his roof's solar supply. A group of women pooled their savings and launched a cold drinks shop, something no one imagined before refrigeration became possible. Children, once limited to daylight hours for study, now found themselves curious after sunset. Not just about their books, but about the light itself. How does it work? They asked. Can we make more? That spark of wonder, of possibility, that was the real power this project had awakened. From the edges of dusty roads to the hearts of small homes, this was no longer just about electricity. It was about dignity, control, opportunity. The light gave people choices, gave them freedom. And that was something that no one could ever take away again. Some of the doubters became the strongest defenders. One man who had laughed at the solar team now volunteers to repair wires and clean panels. I didn't believe in it, he says, until it changed my family's life. The skepticism faded, replaced by pride. Not just in the technology, but in themselves. But this isn't just the story of one village. This is a blueprint, a beginning. Because across the world, millions of people still live in the dark, not just figuratively, but literally. Not because the technology doesn't exist, but because of neglect, broken promises, or a system that forgets them. This one village didn't just light up, they proved what's possible. They became a message to the world: don't wait for change. Build it. And believe in it, even when no one else does. The team who started it? They moved on to another village, another mission. But their legacy remains. You can see it in every glowing window, in every fan that hums quietly through the night, in every child who dreams beyond the limits of daylight. And most importantly, in every heart that once doubted and now dares to hope. Because once light touches a place that has lived so long without it, things never go back to the way they were. They doubted it all until the village was bathed in light. And now, the darkness doesn't stand a chance. The days after the light came were not just brighter, they were different. For the first time, night no longer brought fear or stillness. It brought connection, a sense of possibility, a sense of control. The village, once dictated by the rhythm of the sun, now had a rhythm of its own. You could see it in the way people walked, with their shoulders back, their steps more certain. In how children smiled, running home knowing the dark no longer scared them. In how families stayed up late, talking about plans, dreams, things that once felt too far away. The local school saw a change too. Attendance improved. Teachers stayed later. Students asked more questions. They weren't just learning, they were understanding. A bright room can do more than reveal a page. It can awaken curiosity. And that was happening everywhere. Meanwhile, word spread to nearby areas. Villagers from miles away began walking over, eyes wide, some carrying notebooks, others with nothing but questions. How did this happen? Can we do this too? The spark was catching. And not just the kind from the wires, but from minds that were being lit for the first time. And that's the magic of it all. Real change doesn't just happen in labs, or boardrooms, or glossy tech expos. Sometimes, the most important revolutions begin in silence, in forgotten places. Among people no one thought would ever matter to innovation. But when the lights come on, they do matter. They always did. In this village, the solar panels don't just power bulbs. They power dignity and belief. They are silent, motionless pieces of tech. But together, they created a voice. A signal to the world: we exist. We have potential. And we will not be left behind. There's something profound about seeing light spill out of a window that had only ever known moonlight. Something deeply moving about watching a child press a switch for the first time and smile, not because it's magical, but because it works. Consistently, reliably, quietly. The village no longer waits for help. It plans. It builds. It expands the grid. Trains its youth to maintain it. Collects data. Grows. Not just in light, but in confidence. And in that journey, from doubt to belief, from darkness to brilliance, there's a lesson for all of us. We often underestimate the power of what we cannot see. But what we ignore today might be the very spark that reshapes tomorrow. In this case, a forgotten place became a pioneer. A symbol. A beginning. Because after the light came, something else happened. They began dreaming of what else could change. A health clinic. A solar-powered fridge truck. Even internet towers, powered by the same sun that once beat down on their backs while they waited for miracles. They realized they didn't need miracles. They just needed to believe, to be included, and to be given a chance to build for themselves. And now, every evening, as the sun sets behind the familiar hills, that village glows, not because of a headline, or charity, or photo op, but because they never gave up. The doubters were many. The believers were few. But it only took one moment, one spark, to shift the tide. The night that village lit up wasn't just a technical milestone, it was a human one. Because when people who were always overlooked suddenly rise, suddenly glow, and suddenly own their power, literally and figuratively, everything changes. And now, others are watching. Asking. Hoping. Because if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. They doubted it all, until the village was bathed in light. And that light is just the beginning. If this story moved you, imagine how many more villages are still waiting in darkness. You can help share the light. Hit the like button, subscribe to Gearless Garage, and turn on notifications to discover more real stories of transformation that the world needs to see. Because sometimes, it only takes one spark to ignite a revolution.